Our next session, New Normals or New Frontiers, is presented by Carla Ungarinde, CEO and 10 Coaching and Consulting, LLC. Welcome, Carla.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the last 3 days. Happy Friday to everyone. This has been, I've only been able to catch some of the segments, some of the sessions. Always the music is fantastic. And I'm always happy to be part of my high-tech familia. We're going to take a little bit of a detour. And so indulge me, please. For those of you who know me, remember me, I'm always talking energy. We will get there. But I really want to talk a little bit about 2020, just for a moment. The topic, what we're going to go through is new normals or new frontiers. And you hear us, myself included, desperately searching for a new normal, trying to get back to something that feels familiar, even if we have to force fit it and say, okay, 12-hour Zoom days is familiar now, and so that's the new normal. I reject that. I reject that entirely. I do not want that as my new normal. So let's just go back in time and see where we end up. Today is, this is March 2021. I'm going to take us back to March 6th, 2020. My husband and I were out for, I'd like to call it date night, but it really wasn't. It was his birthday. I remember very, very clearly. We were downtown New York City for live music and dinner. It was really a bar atmosphere. We were celebrating his birthday and this new 2020 year. And 2020 had so much sparkle to it. It was 2020, it was in the name alone. So it sounded like we're going to have big, audacious goals. Here in the States, we celebrated in January, and everyone had very big expectations for this year. And so we were following along with that. And here we are, March 6th, hanging out for his birthday. I call it a date night because, you know, I had on my hoop earrings. That's when you know that you're looking cute. And not the studs that makes me professional, but I had my little hoops on and I was looking good for my hubby and his birthday. And we were downtown for music. And if anyone's been downtown in New York City, the music sounds even better when you're on top of each other. And everyone, not just my husband and I, but strangers that were strangers moments ago are now family. That's kind of how it is in New York. Everything is very close, tight, packed in, and the music just sounds better because you can feel it in your body. And now you're sharing tables with someone else that you just met, and it's fantastic. It just feels alive. Well, there was a cloud, or not even a cloud, but a hovering that in the news that there was a virus going around. I remember that. I remember the four of us, myself, my husband, and our two best friends, our two new best friends that we had just met, we were sharing hand sanitizer. This was before mass. There were a couple hundred people in the club, but we were sharing hand sanitizers. And I remember clearing my throat and having to say, I'm not sick, I'm not sick. So there was a sense that there was a virus, but we had no idea what was about to happen. We had no idea that the innocence we walked in with, in just a few short weeks, those New York City streets, the hustle and bustle of those streets would go totally silent. And that was the last day that we went out in that way with my hoop earrings, looking cute, and just enjoying live music with a couple hundred people, and sitting shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm, not 6 feet of distance. And when we stop and think about the moment when you realize this year was going to be different, the moment that you realize that the 2020 happy-go-lucky year that we were anticipating was going to be different. And so I'm just curious. I remember my day, because it was my husband's birthday. I'm curious to know, when did you realize that 2020 was going to be different? Where were you? What were you doing? I'm just curious. I'd like to open it up and ask the question. It's going to be important as we go through this energy conversation. What were you doing? Where were you? What was happening? I'm looking in the Q&A. I'm looking in the chat. And I don't know, actually, should I be looking in the chats, the live chat? Okay, I know your comments are coming in. And I am curious to know, because as we go through this, I see you here, canceled my trip with my family in March. Yeah. Preparing, knew it was coming. We're at home in Atlanta. I was having a conversation with my boyfriend. Getting back home, celebrating. Yeah. You guys are posting so quickly, I can't even keep up with it. When schools were closed, I'd just come home from work and saw something in the news. Yeah, it's important, okay? And so I do this. I want to know, because it's important as we go through this conversation. When did it become, oh shit, this is a different year? And let's just be frank, right? We're a family, right? We're all family here. When did that knowing become real to you? Here's why it's important. And you might be thinking, Carla, please don't take me back there. Why are we going to have a conversation? Let's move forward. Let's think forward. And I'm with you. I feel you, right? No one wants to go back to that. It requires reverence. The memory of this past year requires reverence. The reverence is so that we can identify ourselves as survivors of something very important. Without that, it's very easy to become victims of something that happened to us. And with survivors, we have an opportunity to grab hold of all of the wisdom, all of the grace, all of the humility that was necessary to get through this year. And we don't want to forget it. We want it to be acknowledged for a lifetime. And that sounds grand, right? It's like, no, let's get over it. Let's get past it. Yes, but indulge me. Indulge me so that we don't get to a new normal. Strength alone is competitive. Humility is triumphant. Strength alone, I can bare knuckle anything, right? I can get through anything if I know I don't ever have to return back to it, and I can just kind of figure it out and muscle through it and be done with it and never look back, hopefully. But humility is triumphant. Humility is something that you carry with you, you carry forward into new frontiers, if you will. Michael Jordan says, forgive me if I get this wrong. He says, teams win games, but teamwork talent wins games, but teamwork and intelligence win championships. There is a reverence, there is a respect that comes with the remembering, because what we're remembering is that it felt horrible. We didn't get it all right. We didn't know where we were going, what we were doing, and it was chaotic. And it felt horrible in that moment. And so we can all remember that. We can remember the quiet streets. We can remember fiddling with Zoom. Now we're all experts. We can remember canceling trips, not seeing family. So let's take this hero's journey together, right? Joseph Campbell talks about the hero's journey. He talks about the departure. He talks about, in my words, the reluctant initiation, and then the return. We're poised right now for the return. And so let's remember the departure. Let's remember that initiation that we reluctantly walked through, so that we can firmly stand in the return with choice and our humility and our grace and our wisdom that came forward. Okay. So if everybody's okay going through that journey with me, because let's just decide on some new things as we go into this. New normals. I'm not signing up for 12-hour Zoom days. So if you're with me, let's talk about what that could mean. So I'm an energy coach. What does that mean? I'm an energy master practitioner, if we want to get fancy about it. Really, all that means is if you're talking to me, I'm going to talk to you about energy. I'm going to talk to you about the importance of your thoughts, your feelings, translating into behaviors, dictating what you do. It is that powerful. And this is not a construct. This is not a coaching modality. This is not Carla's work. Energy is energy. Energy is this desk. It's this monitor. It's the seat that you're sitting in. Energy is all around us all the time. And so when we talk about energy, and when I'm working with leaders, I work with leaders in energy and their leadership teams, because it becomes this masterful tool that they get to play with. Leaders who are incredibly successful, know how to be successful, know how to run businesses. When they start to master energy, negotiate their energy, manage their energy, it is not about staying happy and skipping through the hallways with rainbows and puppy dogs. It is not that. It's about creating space for themselves in moments of crisis and moments of decision, creating enough space for themselves to remain curious and not to plow through in a commanding way, but to actually include all of the noise, all of the chaos. Energy and an understanding of energy allows them to do that. It also allows them to interact with their teams in ways where their teams are now engaging and their teams are now offering that discretionary energy that is exclusively theirs to offer. You may get my 9-to-5 brain, you may get my 9-to-5 effort, but you don't get any more than that unless there's some place for me to put it, unless I feel valued, unless I feel like I matter. That's discretionary energy. And so leaders know how to tap into that when they know energy. And so let's just talk about energy just very, very quickly. For those of you who know, again, who know me, I'm always going to talk about energy. You probably even know that there's 7 levels to energy, right? And I can talk about it all day, as you know, because I love it. But here's a snapshot. If there's 7 levels of energy that can put us in a position of feeling like we're surviving, feel like we're adapting to a situation, or feel like we're thriving, right? Let's just high level buckets. Specifically, level 1 is when we're feeling overwhelmed and we're drowning. We had a lot of that this past year, a lot of level 1. It affects you physically. You feel exhausted, you feel tired. You're not crazy because of that. Energy is at a cellular level. So level 1 is when I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm just drowning. Level 2 is when I'm fighting back and I'm defiant. It's a great energy level. It's fantastic. Athletes use level 2 energy to win games. Protesters use level 2 energy to protest in the streets. Level 2 energy is fantastic energy. Keeps us safe. Level 3 is still and restorative. Level 4, I'm now in service with level 4 energy. Level 5 energy, I'm in cooperation with level 5 energy. Level 6, I'm in harmony. Level 7, I'm in alignment. In alignment with a greater source. You can call it God, you can call it Allah, you can call it Buddha, you can call it any source that is different than this pedestrian physical space that we occupy is level 7. And we find ourselves there. Sometimes we'll find ourselves there on vacation, hiking by a big body of water. We don't know why we're feeling emotional. It's level 7. It's a level 7 experience. So when we talk about these energy levels, again, level 1 is feeling overwhelmed and drowning. Level 2, I'm fighting mad, I'm fighting back, I'm defiant. Level 3, I'm finding ways to be still, to restore. Some people may think of it as putting an oxygen mask on your face. That's always a great way to think of it. And it may be familiar, that phrase, but you also have to remember that if I'm putting an oxygen mask on my face, that means that there's a problem. That means that the plane is going down. So level 3 does not mean I'm going to ignore it, I'm going to walk away from it. It means danger, something's wrong, but here's your mask. Take care of yourself first. So level 3 is a really important energy level. I need to be okay. Because level 4 means I'm in service with you, for you. Level 5, I'm in cooperation. Level 6, I'm in harmony, I'm not fighting. Level 7 is in alignment. When we talk about these energy levels, although they sound very neat and orderly and tidy, they are not discrete. We go through an energy dance all the time, throughout the day, sometimes on one Zoom call. John might come on the call and really getting under my skin and pissing me off, right? I might go right to level 2 and now I'm going to battle him, and one of us is going to take that level 2 spot. Two titans fighting. I'm sure you've been in that position before. I know I have. I'd like to think that not so often. I don't do that too often, but I did all the time before. When you think about coming from Spanish Harlem and you have a chip on your shoulder, that chip got me to that table. Really necessary. I was fighting, defiant about what I'm going to have and what someone might be telling me I can't have. So I'm fighting mad. But at what point do we stop fighting? And at what point do we become in alignment, in service, in cooperation, in harmony? Still, at what point? These energy levels, as I said, they're at a cellular level. It's primitive. Levels 1 and 2 are survival. So surviving energy levels. Think Maslow's hierarchy. Think fight, flight, freeze. It's everything that you know instinctively is level 1 and 2. What we do, thinking about energy and mastering energy, is we're taking that knowing of what's happening at a cellular level and combining it with our memories and our imprinting and our language that then dictates what we do. That's the important part. What we do, we're not walking around just doing things randomly. Our thoughts direct our bodies, and our bodies then say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. We're always doing. When our thoughts say there's danger present, my body, efficient as it is, releases adrenaline at levels 1 and 2 so that I can get those things done, those really hard things done. So adrenaline is fueling my body. Athletes, adrenaline on the field. A car is barreling down the road toward me, adrenaline. I need to get out of the way. All really helpful. But when I'm on a Zoom call and John comes in, forgive me, all the Johns who are wonderful, delightful people, forgive me. I'm just using the name. But when John gets on the call and he's coming on the call, he and I don't really get along. He's bringing his whole agenda. Here we go again. He always does this. My brain doesn't know the difference of whether or not I'm in the middle of the street, I'm on an athletic playing field, I'm on a pitch. My brain does not know the difference, just signals threat and danger, sends the signal to my body. I'm now sitting on a Zoom call full of adrenaline and no place for it to go. The year 2020 was full of level 1 energy, full of level 2 energy. I remember giving talks at the very beginning of the pandemic and thinking and saying those words, we are living in a masterclass of level 1. And I said that, and I will always speak from a position of a heart, not performance. And all that simply means is they're the things that I'm wondering about and I'm curious about. And I'm just sharing them with you. And I'm wondering, are you curious about the same things? Have you been experiencing the same things? That's what our conversations are always about. And so earlier on during the pandemic, all I kept saying was we're living in a sea of level 1 energy. I needed to meditate not just once a day, but 2 or 3 times a day. just to find that level 3 where I can be still for just a moment because it was so disorienting. And we typically live with a lot of level 1 and a lot of level 2. Because again, think Maslow. Am I secure? Do I feel safe? When we're trying to do really heavy work like diversity and equity and inclusion, that's very heavy work and that's hard to reach if we're all trying to navigate a feeling of safety. It's very hard. That DEI work really lives at level 6, some level 5 and level 6. But we spend a lot of time at level 1 and 2. So think about our families as well. I was listening to some amazing speakers over the last few days, and we share a similar story of our families coming here with nothing and us being the first ones to graduate from college. I'm part of that club. The first one in my family to graduate, and it took me 9 years to graduate. 9 years. Undergrad, 9 years. Because I had work, I had 2 children, and college and school, higher education was just not part of my family's dialogue at all. So I didn't know what student loans were like and filling out forms and everything else, right? A lot of feeling of overwhelmed at level 1, a lot of level 2 to say, no, I'm going to get this done. I want to get this done. So our families have a lot of level 2 energy. But again, as we talked about a moment ago, and remember, the remembering is what makes them survivors, because they weren't doing it just to be strong, just to have grit and move forward. They were doing it with a lot of humility and respect because it was purposeful. You can sit and talk to your abuela, talk to your mom, and ask them questions, and they will remember. They will remember sacrificing. They will remember what it felt like not knowing the language. They will remember that apprehension, that fear, that feeling terrified of what am I doing, but still moving on. The remembering is important. Okay, so let's take, and even, I'll tell you, high-tech's mantra, which I love, pull up, push up. There's a lot of level 2 energy in that because it's defiant, but there's so much level 6 energy in that. There's so much hopefulness in that. It's towards what? Towards something. So let's take that energy conversation and now let's wrap it into why I'm asking you, begging you to come with me and indulge me on this remembering. On a typical day, how much of your time is spent in level 1 and level 2 energy? Just consider it. It's not a criticism. It's not an indictment of any kind. But just consider how much of our time, especially with 12-hour Zoom calls, how much of our time, look at our calendars, are spent just trying to keep up, feeling overwhelmed, being defiant, saying, you know what, I'm taking my weekend, right? F it, right? How much of our time? And then how much of our time is spent in service, in cooperation, in harmony, in alignment? It's just a question, okay? Please put some of your response. I know I can't keep up with the comments as they come in. I love the comments and the conversation. Please keep them coming. I want you to keep putting them there, and just share the conversation among each other. So when we talk about remembering and we talk about energy, let's go back to 2020. Let's go back to March 2020, and 3 things were happening. We were totally unprepared. We were uncertain. And as the months continued to move forward, we were unraveling. As a human community, all across the globe, some harder than others, looking at New York City streets and seeing them empty and kind of ready for like a movie set was alarming. But we were absolutely unprepared uncertain unraveling. And so if we're to take that moment and just freeze frame it for just a second so that we can go into a space of remembering, so that we can actually bring forward the lessons and not make 2020 a footnote that we finally are getting over. Let's do a little I remember kind of an exercise so that we can honor it with humility, so that we are triumphant as survivors of 2020. Not victims, but survivors. That's a badge. So I'll tell you what I remember. I remember, yes, like a lot of you, canceling workshops and trips. I remember speaking with airlines and seeing if I can get a credit or what that was going to look like, and airlines not knowing and me not knowing. I remember having a first workshop online and not feeling the connection, and getting off of the workshop, the virtual workshop, feeling empty. And again, for those of you who know me, you know I get right up in your face. I might even share a seat with you and ask you to scooch over. And I remember feeling, I can't do this if I can't connect, if I can't feel them, speak to them, touch them. I can't do this. I remember that horrible feeling that I had. I remember my first online cocktail party and thinking, well, this is fun. This is kind of cute. And we can be in jammies and we don't have to, get back in our car and commute. And this is nice. I remember my first online wedding. I remember my first online graduation. I had a couple of those, actually. I remember my first online funeral. And I'm sad to say that I had more than one. You may have two. I remember seeing my uncle who had lost his wife. And I remember witnessing his pain and not being able to do anything about it. And almost feeling as if I was just a spectator. I remember desperately wanting to hug him. I remember the 8 minutes and 46 seconds of excruciating silence in honor of George Floyd. I remember the rage in the months that followed for the other deaths that we had, the killings. I remember missing my daughters. They're in their 30s, they have their own homes, but I remember missing them. My youngest one, her hair always smells like the beach. It always has. I don't know why. And I remember missing the feel of her back and the smell of her hair. And having a really rough afternoon and just wanting to hug them and not being able to. I remember a friend of mine losing his dad and calling my mom. And I remember how happy I was when she picked up. I knew she would, but in that moment, I was just so happy to hear her voice. And she had no idea why or what I had been going through, what my problem was. But I remember thinking, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky that she's here. What do you remember having gone through this year? What do you remember? Hold it without the language of it was a hard year. But remember what it felt like, what you saw, what you thought. So what do you remember? Just add, and I so love you guys and appreciate you guys for indulging me in this conversation, because again, I'm just curious and I just want to know what you think. Yeah, it's a lot of heartache. And I remember spending time with the kids, the fear of the unknown, panic attacks, giving birth to my first son, feeling helpful, feeling helpless. Remember these. I'm going to get to questions after, I promise. I promise I will. Remember these things, because here's what we get to do now. We get to take those in all of our infant innocence, and now remember also what we did. So I can remember, because we're now returning. We're returning to the space of what do you do with all of that learning, all of that experience that you had. So we're triumphant now. And level one, again, I remember being in a perpetual state of level one at the very beginning. I get filled up with other people's energy. And I remember feeling like there was a cloud over me. And I just missed people. I missed their smiles. I missed hugging them. So at level one, it was very difficult. At level two, I was really angry. And I was watching the news in a very unhealthy, obsessive kind of way, because I wanted to stay mad, because it felt better than feeling overwhelmed. So I wanted to stay angry. So level two was all news for me. So I had to find ways to restore and be still. And how can I do that, knowing that we're in our home, my husband and I can't be with other people? So how do we do that? Well, level three is something that we did with groups that I work with. I work with different cohorts, and we started having game nights. Now, these are brilliant professionals like you, and we have game nights now. So the programs that I run, we now have evening game nights. We had one last night. They become very epic. And there's a lot of smack talk that goes on, because everybody wants to win. But it's an evening. Grab your glass of wine, grab your Jack Daniels, grab whatever your drink of choice is, and let's just exhale together, have some fun, and we play Pictionary. So we have epic Pictionary games where the rules are not with the game board, but the rules get a little crazy, where you can steal and it gets crazy. But we started to have game nights, and game nights became a way for us as a team, as a collective, to exhale. What about being in service at level four? At level four, being in service included my mom. I missed her. Typically, I'll see her maybe twice a year. She lives in Florida. We started a book club. We are on our book club every month. She, myself, and my two daughters. We have a book club. We are on our 11th book right now. And it has been amazing. I know more about what she's doing in her life because we have this book club. What about level five? What about in cooperation with? Well, this high-tech forum is a great example of level five energy. Not fighting against, oh, we can't be in person, we can't hire a space, we can't all be in the same physical space. But what did we do? I say we because I'm an adopted child of high-tech. But what did high-tech do? They researched, they worked with the brilliant, amazing 305 group and their partners to create this interactive platform where now there's even more people that could fit into a room at one time. Level 5 is in cooperation. There is no judgment of it being wrong or right, or this is the way we do it. We're in cooperation. Level 5, think ensemble, think performance, think improv, think jazz. There's no wrong. Let's just take everything it is, a big old pot of arroz con pollo, and just all put all the ingredients in. Level 5. Level 6. What happened at level 6? Well, it was a curious thing. Level 6 is in harmony. I mentioned briefly before that level 6 is where diversity and equity and inclusion happens. We try mightily to do it from a level 2 perspective, where there's an outcome and that we're gonna to fight our way through it. But level 6 is not about being tolerant. It's about being in harmony. And so level 6, it's what I feel sitting on top of each other at a live bar, a live music at a bar. It's level 6. We're all in the same space. There is no right or wrong. Level 6. So what's been interesting this year from the perspective and lens of level 6 is DEI efforts have exploded. We are busier now than we've ever been because of the summer that we had last year, because of those killings, because of the loss. COVID has been a bit of an equalizer for many organizations. Everyone has to be home. So someone who might be immobile can now work from home. You have more opportunities for everyone to be in the same space. So level 6 has been an incredible equalizer and opportunity because of COVID in 2020. So that's been amazing. And level 7, interesting. Level 7, I talked about it as being in alignment, right? With higher power. And I meditate and I pray every day. I was finding that I needed more. I kept being out of alignment and I could feel it in my body. I had some tostones. You guys are so funny. But I found myself out of alignment. And so what I did, and I never had an altar of any kind, but I created an altar and I put it on a lower level so that each morning when I go to pick up my beads, I have to kneel. It's not casual. I have to kneel and pause and say, I am nothing without first kneeling. I didn't do that before because the need, well, there was an instinctive need to do that. Now there is. Now there is, and I'm so grateful for it. So we get to bring all of these things forward. Consider the examples that you are bringing forward because you've remembered and are remembering. What do you absolutely, overtly, deliberately want to bring forward because of what you remember? How do you want to be in? And when I say in, all of those energy levels of being in service, in harmony, in cooperation, in alignment, how do you want to be in? The moment you start to consider that, you're in those higher energy levels. There is a Faulkner is, I am a student of literature. My academic degrees, I have an undergrad and a graduate degree. That's not bragging because it took me like a lifetime. So I'm not bragging about that, but they are in literature, they're in English. So I tend to quote my literary idols. And Faulkner said this during his 1962 Nobel Prize acceptance speech. 1962, a time of civil rights, violence, Vietnam, great division. And in his speech, he said, I believe that man will not merely endure. He will prevail. He is immortal, not because he alone among creatures has an inexhaustible voice, but because he has a soul, a spirit capable of compassion and sacrifice and endurance. And I believe that too. I believe that too. So we resist the urge to call things new normals. And I know why. I promise I know why, because we just want to get back to something that feels like we're in control and it's familiar, and our homes look familiar again, and we're not trying to share space, working spaces with our children and things like that. I get it. But we can reach for more and create new frontiers with the things that we remember that we're bringing forward. So this is our return from the epic journey that we took. This is our return. And language matters. Language holds energy. And language sets our intention. And what's an intention except organized energy? That's all an intention is organized energy. So be careful with your language. Choose to be in. And it doesn't mean lean in. It doesn't mean that. It really doesn't. It means choose, ask yourself, how can I be in? And know that in that moment, when you're asking yourself that question, that you're already leaning towards level 4, level 5, level 6. And we won't always be there. We're not supposed to always be there, quite frankly. We need level 2 energy. We need level 1 energy. When I just want to cocoon because I'm feeling overwhelmed, let me do that. Leave me alone. If I'm feeling really angry and I just want to be mad at that car who cut me off, then damn it, let me be angry. That's okay. But let's be survivors who are charting a new frontier, where curiosity over certainty is most important, where discernment over judgment is something that we're capable of, where not having to know is something that we honor now as a skill, as a talent. And it doesn't make us broken, and it doesn't make us wrong. It just makes us capable of anything. So I offer this because language does matter. Be careful of the language that you're using when we're talking about energy. I'm going to give you one last quote just because I can't help it. And I love quotes, and I know I am looking at the time. Flaubert says about language, he says human speech is like a cracked kettle on which we play crude rhythms for bears to dance to, while we wish to make music that will melt the stars. Let's reach for something more than a return to control and being on autopilot. I know we have questions, tools. Am I writing a book? I have a book that is in process for like the last few years. So please don't make me feel guilty that it hasn't happened yet. One more question before it goes to 246. How do we get from level 1 and 2 to energy 5, 6, and 7 on a more consistent basis? Great question. Rituals and routines. Level 3 rituals and routines that allow you to pause and be still. Truly pause and be still, more than just reading an affirmation. Rituals and routines, you have to do the work that makes you stop. That's where our boundaries are created, is when we are practicing level 3. So rituals and routines. I'll read one more question, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm sure Viviana, Susanna, Omar, thank you, 305, everyone who asked me to join, and I said yes, of course, know how to reach me. What tools are available for us to move higher in levels? Is meditation one of them? Yes, meditation is absolutely one of them. Use the I Remember exercise. It is not my exercise. It is a free writing exercise. It comes from a book, Joe Brainard. He wrote a memoir, and it's entitled I Remember. It's an exercise that you can do. Take 10 minutes and only 10 minutes, and write every sentence begins with the word I remember. It allows some free thinking to take place. Okay. Love you guys. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I'm sorry I wasn't able to answer all your questions, but I'm here. And I know that there's music following me. So high-tech music. So I'm going to turn it back to the voice of God. Thanks for having me.